When nothing replaces the old self. Hello, my name is Jewel. Many people expect that when an old identity collapses, a new identity will immediately appear. The old self disappears, the new self arrives, the transition is complete. But that is often not what happens. Sometimes the old identity collapses and nothing immediately replaces it. No new role, no new label, no new certainty, no new definition. For many people, this is one of the most unfamiliar stages of change. This video explores why that happens and why it is often misunderstood. The human operating system is organized around continuity. When one stabilizer disappears, the system naturally searches for another. Historically, identity has often provided continuity through roles, responsibilities, self-definitions, predictable behavior, social expectations. When one identity structure collapses, the operating system assumes another should take its place. The expectation creates pressure. The system begins asking, who am I now? What comes next? What should replace this? But those questions assume replacement is required. When an identity collapses, the operating system often enters unfamiliar territory. The old structure no longer fits, but a replacement structure has not yet formed. This creates a temporary gap. Many people interpret this gap as confusion, lack of direction, loss of purpose, absence of progress. But structurally, the gap may simply indicate that the system has stopped relying on the old structure before creating a new one. The absence of replacement does not automatically indicate a problem. This operating system prefers certainty. Certainty creates predictability. Predictability creates familiarity. When no replacement identity appears, the system often increases activity in an attempt to restore certainty. It may begin searching for answers, looking for new roles, creating new definitions, seeking external validation, attempting to resolve uncertainty as quickly as possible. This pressure is understandable, but it can also interrupt the transition. The operating system may attempt to build a replacement before recognition has stabilized. Let's continue with the same example I used throughout this series. Someone who has spent years identifying as the dependable caretaker. They coordinated, managed, anticipated, solved, maintained. Eventually, that identity began collapsing. The role load released. The caregiving functions remained, but the identity attached to those functions weakened. Then something unexpected happened. Nothing immediately replaced it. The person was no longer operating from the old identity, but neither were they operating from a new one. The operating system may interpret this as something is missing, something should be happening. I should know who I am now. But structurally, the absence of replacement may simply indicate that the new identity collapsed before a new continuity structure formed. One of the most common misunderstandings is assuming that identity must always be present. The operating system often treats identity as necessary infrastructure. Without identity, it assumes instability. Without identity, it assumes confusion. Without identity, it assumes something went wrong. but this assumption deserves examination. What if identity is not required in every moment? What if function can continue without a strong self-definition? What if recognition can operate without identity organizing it? These questions become important during this stage. When nothing immediately replaces the old self, the operating system is often learning something new. It is discovering that function can remain, responsibility can remain, action can remain, relationships can remain, even when identity structures collapse. This is a significant transition. The operating system begins discovering that continuity may not require the same level of identity-based organization it once depended on. As this process unfolds, stability begins emerging from a different source, not from role, not from self-definition, not from predictability alone. Instead, recognition begins taking a more central position. Action becomes less dependent on identity. Function becomes less dependent on labels. The operating system gradually discovers that stability can exist even when no replacement identity has appeared. To recap, when an old identity collapses, nothing may immediately replace it. The human operating system often interprets this as a problem because it expects continuity through identity. But the absence of a replacement is not necessarily evidence of confusion, failure, or loss. Sometimes it simply means the system has stopped relying on an old structure before a new one has formed. The next video explores what happens when recognition becomes more important than self-definition and why that shift changes the way stability is organized. Until next time.